Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Carrie Harris. I'm the Executive Director of A+ Schools and also the proud parent of 3 Pittsburgh Public School students. And I welcome you here this morning for the presentation of and release of our 10th anniversary annual report to the community on public school progress. Here's what we're going to do this morning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who A+ Schools is. I know that most of you know, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of who we are and why we do this report. We're going to talk about what's new in the report this year as our 10th anniversary redesigned report. We're going to show you some high-level indicators of progress across the district, and then we're going to hear remarks from our distinguished guest, the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Linda Lane, and Miss Nina Esposito-Visgitis, President of the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers. Sound like a plan? Yeah? All right, so who's here? A+ Schools is your independent advocate for equity and excellence in public education in Pittsburgh. We have a vision. Our vision is that achievement rises across the district, that 100% of our kids graduate from high school, and 80% of them complete some kind of post-secondary education and job training. Our vision means that race should no longer be a factor in determining who graduates, who achieves, and who goes on to post-secondary education or training. Make sense? Here's what we mean when we say an equitable education. We believe an equitable system provides every kid with the support they need to reach and exceed that shared standard of success, graduating from high school and going on to post-secondary education. But we further believe that equity is not an even split of resources, but rather a strategic allocation. We believe there are 4 big strategies that get us to an equitable system: great teachers in every classroom, resources based on student needs, opportunities like music, art, world languages, career and technical education that unlock student potential, and differentiated supports, things like special education, gifted education, after-school tutoring, guidance counseling, and behavioral supports for kids. But fundamentally, those things that keep kids in school and help them to achieve. So remember these indicators because they're going to be throughout the report this morning. Here's what we do. Our theory of change is really that a community that's informed, engaged, and organized can demand and support the kind of reforms that will get us better student outcomes and will help us achieve that vision. So that's what we do. We organize, inform, and engage the community, specifically parents and students and community partners, through a variety of programs that informs our research and policy analysis work, which is also actually informs our engagement. This report is an example of that. And from time to time, we mobilize the community to do something spectacular when we think there's an opportunity for a change. This report is one of our oldest and most significant publications. And so now I'm just going to move you on to what to expect in this year's report. So this is our 10th anniversary report, and a lot has changed, but the main thing has not changed, and that is the purpose of the report. The report is here to provide common, accessible information to stakeholders so that parents at Phillips and parents at Weill can be looking at the same kinds of information about their school, right? They're not relying on rumor and innuendo, they're looking at facts. We also do this report so that stakeholders can ask data-based questions. Increasingly, we make decisions in all sectors of the economy based on data. We want to make sure that stakeholders are empowered with that same information to ask good questions, to make sure kids are getting a great education. And finally, we believe this report provides our readers with an opportunity to look at progress over time. 1 year does not progress or a trend make, but the ability to look over time makes all the difference. This year, we've redesigned the report to mark this 10th anniversary to really look at our equity indicators, right? I talked about resources, opportunities, teachers, supports. So you're going to have indicators on those issues in this year's report. We've also shifted from reporting on every tested grade and subject to just reporting on key academic milestones. So we saved room to talk about the inputs and spent less time talking about the outcomes, but we gave you what we believe are the most important outcomes. We're also looking at value-added measures, the district's value-added measures. In the past, we've reported on PVOS. This year, we're moving to PPS value-added. And we've redesigned the report to accomplish all this and incorporate all this new information. So we hope our readers will find it very informative and visually pleasing and easy to read. The report still contains three big areas of information. Facts. Facts on every school. Every school has its own page or two in the book with the same information on it. We continue to provide the readers with comparison charts that enable you to compare schools on a number of indicators by grade configuration, and we look at trends across the district, and those are found in the executive summary in the report. All right, so you're all sitting there with the report now. Most of you are anyway, so you can see what's in it, and I'm going to show you basically what you can expect on each of the school pages. We're reporting for the first time on a variety of teaching indicators. These are new. We're showing teacher performance on Pittsburgh's new teacher evaluation system, teacher reports on whether or not they feel their school is a good place to work and learn, the percentage of teachers that are new to the school. This includes both turnover but new positions added to the school as well. And it includes principal stability, because principals are a big factor in teaching. And so how many principals have been in the building in the past 4 years? We've always reported that. We continue to report it here this year. For the first time, we're reporting resources by school. This is site-based, per pupil expenditure only. It includes the average teacher salary, principal salaries, and some supplies. But it does not include special education, transportation, facilities, and so it does not represent every dollar that's invested in kids at school, but it is a representation of what is in the school's site-based budget. We're including some school climate indicators. These are opportunities, these are ways that you can see evidence of opportunities and support of kids. We're showing you student perceptions of feeling cared for and challenged as measured in the Tripod Student Survey. We're reporting parent satisfaction as reported in the Parent Satisfaction Survey. We're reporting the stability of the student population over the course of the year. So the percentage of kids that started the year at a school and stayed at the school for the whole year, which turns out to have a big impact on how well kids do. Suspensions broken down by race, and student chronic absenteeism, which is really the percentage of kids that are missing 10% or more of school days. So those are some of our school climate indicators. That's only on the top of the page. Here's what's at the bottom of the page. Each page is indicating key academic milestones. So in a school with a third grade, we're going to show you third grade reading. Why? Because by third grade, we know we need kids to have learned how to read, so that they can read to learn going forward. This is a key milestone articulated by Dr. Linda Lane in her Whole Child, Whole Community plan. We also know it's a good predictor of graduating from high school. In the middle grades, these little circles are going to report 8th grade algebra. Why? 8th grade algebra turns out to be a gateway course for advanced course taking in math in high school. So we want to make sure that we have as many kids prepared for those advanced courses in high school as possible, because we know that those advanced math are what's going to make them most competitive in an increasingly demanding global economy. In high school, these little circles are going to be about keystone exams in literature and algebra. Those are tied to the PA core standards and a predictor of college and career readiness. The other thing on the page, at the bottom of the page, is going to be a chart that's going to show attainment over time for a grade span. So in an elementary, it'll be 3 to 5. For middle grades, it'll be 6 to 8. And it's disaggregated by race so that you're going to be able to see the gap over time and what progress that school is making towards closing the achievement gap. Our high school pages show some particularly important indicators. They've always had some different things. This year, we're reporting the participation in advanced courses, both advanced placement and centers for advanced studies, disaggregated by race. So this is telling you how many kids are participating in those courses and who is participating in those courses. We're showing you promise eligibility by GPA for every high school. So this does not include how long they've been matriculated in the district or their attendance. This is just by GPA alone. We're showing you the percentage of kids from this high school that graduated and the percentage of kids that enrolled in post-secondary education or job training. That's a new indicator this year. You with me? So being able to provide all of this data is a major lift, and we could not do it without some really important people, most of which is Dr. Linda Lane and her team. We thank the district, the superintendent for working with us to produce this report. It really is a reflection of her commitment to transparency and to engaging the public in making sure schools are working for kids. I'd especially like to thank Deb Friss and Tara Tucci from the district for working with us on this report. I also need to give a shout out to the State Department of Education, who responded to a special data request that enabled us to get some data early in order to meet our print deadline, data that was only recently made available publicly. I want to thank our student artists and congratulate them. You see student artwork on the front and the back of the report. We're actually soliciting student artwork for next year, so I might as well tell you that now while the media is here. Teachers, go to the introduction section of the report and find out how you can submit student artwork for next year's cover. I'd like to thank A to Z Communications, the whole A+ Schools team, which includes A to Z Communications, who redesigned the report this year, worked with us tirelessly on correction after correction and getting it right. I'd like to thank Dr. Shula Nedley and her assistant, Lori Barnes, for all the data analysis and crunching the numbers that made this report possible, included many, many sleepless nights, unfortunately. Thank you, Shula. Faith Shantz, who's here with us this evening, who's been editing this report and writing it for 10 years, and without whom it would never get to the printer on time. Thank you, Faith. I'd like to thank our staff, James Fogarty, who worked tirelessly on this report, including coming in on a Saturday, which was his birthday, to make sure that this thing got to the printer on time. So thank you, James. To Amy Scott and Rebecca Jenkins for helping conceive the redesign, and for the whole team for checking data. We want to thank our charter schools who provided data directly for the report. We want to thank our Teen Block students for their work, which is in the report this year, the Student Bill of Rights, and an infographic depicting what those rights mean for kids is included in the report this year. And finally, I want to thank the Advocates for African American Students in Pittsburgh Public Schools, represented by Mrs. Wanda Henderson here today. We're thankful for their amazing and tenacious commitment to educational equity, and we're honoring that in this year's report with marking their 30th anniversary with a page summarizing their work. So thank them. Thanks to all of you. Okay, so I'm going to provide some high-level findings from the report. We're going to start at the end. Academic milestones. We want to answer this, fundamentally want to answer this question: how well are we preparing students to be successful when they graduate from Pittsburgh Public Schools? We looked at 3 indicators. We looked at the percentage of kids taking advanced courses. We looked at the percentage of kids qualifying for that amazing gift of the Pittsburgh Promise, qualifying by GPA, and we looked at the percentage of kids graduating in 4 years. And here's what we found. The big news, which I know the district released last week, is that the graduation rate is up. It's up 8 points in just 2 years. 8 points, that is significant. We are doing a much better job in this district of keeping our kids in school, and that's gonna lead to great things. Amen. We also found that 48% of the district seniors earned a grade point average that qualified for them for the Pittsburgh Promise. That's a little lower than in years past. We know that district-wide, 41% of students enrolled in 1 or more AP courses. 41%. We did a little early looking, and that is seriously competitive with some of the best districts in the region, right? 41%. That's 26% percentage points higher than it was 2 years ago. That's significant. And so we commend these kids, their teachers, and the district for making the policy changes necessary to enable that to happen. So that's where we are at the end of the day for our kids last year, in any case. We also looked at academic milestones. Again, 3rd grade reading. Why do we care? Kids need to learn to read so they can read to learn. We see that in 3rd grade last year, 54% of 3rd graders were reading at grade level. That means, unfortunately, that 46% weren't. And that represents about 730 3rd graders, kids in 4th grade this year that weren't reading at grade level last year. We've got a lot of work to do. We know it gets harder the further kids go, so we have a lot of work to do there. But we know the average really sort of masks the disparity across schools. And what we know is that there are schools with high percentages of kids reading at grade level, regardless of race or income. And I'll point out Sunnyside, for example. Here is a school where 76% of African American 3rd graders were reading at grade level or better. And you compare that to some of the lowest points in the district. We have one school where 17% of third graders are reading at grade level. So we have wide variety. There are great places in this district for kids to get a great education. We need more of them. I also want to point out that the Urban League Charter School, 81% of their third graders reading at grade level last year. We looked at 8th grade algebra, as I mentioned earlier. Are we on the path to getting kids ready for advanced math in high school? Half of 8th graders that took algebra passed the Keystone exam. However, only 36% of 8th graders took algebra, right? We know that in schools that had 8th grade, no 8th grader took algebra in 5 schools. No 8th grader took algebra in 5 schools. But in one school, we had 100% of 8th graders taking algebra. So there's a wide variance of what can happen for 8th grade algebra there. 11th graders. Are 11th graders on the path to graduate ready for college and career training? We know that overall 68% of our 11th graders are passing the Keystone Literature exam, and another 53% are passing the algebra exam. Again, wide variety across schools. In 2 of our schools, Obama and Kappa, you get like percentages of 89 and 94% of African American students passing that literature exam. But we have schools with 8% of juniors passing that literature exam. Again, at Obama and Kappa, you have high percentages of African American students passing the algebra Keystone. But we have one school where 3% of our 11th graders pass the algebra Keystone. We can and we must do better. Each year we also look, so this is a snapshot on where we were in 2014. But this is our 10th anniversary report. We usually report on 4-year trends, but this year we thought it's our 10th anniversary. Let's report on 9 years trends. And what we see here, you're looking at reading on the top, math on the bottom, Pittsburgh Public Schools in the state of Pennsylvania. And what you see is generally PPS is following on the same trajectory as the state with similar gaps. Both the state and the district had a high point in 2011 where achievement rose and the gap narrowed, followed by 2 years worth of declines for both the district and the state. But this last year was a particularly good one for the district, even in comparison to the state, where our black students actually outperformed the state. Black students in the state. Since 2006, we see that achievement is slightly up and in both reading and math, and the gap has narrowed slightly by 2 points in math and 3 points in reading since 2006. So we have some modest progress, and I should indicate that this is 3rd through 8th grade on this chart. So that's the overall district gap, but again, that's only part of the story. We know that there's wide variation about achievement and outcomes in our schools. So we've been looking at, for the past few years, schools that are doing a really good job of closing the gap. And we define that as schools with a gap of 10 points or less. And what we see is that, again, we have some excellent schools in Pittsburgh that are enabling students to succeed regardless of race or income. We have 8 schools with a 10 points or less gap in reading. That's 1 less than 2 years ago. But here's the big news. We have 15 schools that have a gap of 10 points or less in math. That's twice as many as 2 years ago. So we have schools that are doing some amazing work reducing the achievement gap in math. We have a growing number, and I'm happy to report this year that represents a growing number of neighborhood schools that are closing the gap, more than we've seen in the past. We still have twice as many charters and magnets closing the gap in math, and 3 times as many charters and magnets in reading. But again, a growing number of neighborhood schools in both categories. So now we're going to transition to our inputs. And we asked some questions about, because we know teaching quality is the biggest in-school factor leading to better student outcomes, we asked how are teachers performing, and do they feel like their schools are enabling them to succeed and for success for kids. And what we see is that we have distinguished teachers across the district. And the percentage of teachers performing at the distinguished and proficient ranges is 96% across the district. We also know that teacher responses to the question, my school is a good place to work and learn, is very high across schools. That's that second set of bars over there. It's a very strong indicator across schools with teachers responding that they agree to that question. Resources, here we go. Remember, teachers, resources, opportunities, and support. Resources, again, we looked at site-based per pupil spending. I know these numbers look low. We know the district spends significantly more per pupil. This is just what's in the site-based budget. But what we see, what we know is that resources are essential to making schools work. We have lots of questions about how the resources are spent and whether or not they're contributing to good outcomes. But we did find here that we're spending more in small schools. In schools where we have less than 300 kids, we're spending about $1,000 more per pupil. We also know that we tend to spend more in 6 to 8 schools and 6 to 12. So that chart's not on this slide, but it is in the executive summary of the report. School climate. So there's lots of indicators in this report about school climate. I'm choosing here to look at chronic absenteeism and suspensions because they're both factors in attendance, right? And attendance is an indicator of a lot of things. One of them is whether or not a school is a welcoming place and a place where kids feel challenged and is a good use of their time. It's also a lead indicator of achievement, right? You're not achieving if you're not in school. So we're reporting on chronic absenteeism and suspension, and we see generally across the district high percentages of students being suspended from school, especially in middle and high school. In middle school, 32%, and high school, 31% of students being suspended at least once. We also see high percentages of kids missing 10 days or more, and that's increasing as they go throughout their school careers. Middle schools, or chronic absenteeism, is the highest in our high schools at 43%. So this is an issue that we've got to get on if we want more kids earning that GPA to get them ready for the promise and taking those advanced courses. You're not going to survive in an advanced course if you're missing 10% of days or more. So that's just a highlight at some of the indicators. In this report, we want to celebrate some progress made here. And these are good things to celebrate. The graduation rate, again, is up 8 points in just 2 years. We are seeing significantly greater participation in advanced courses for both black and white students. We have more schools with little or no achievement gap in math, and achievement is slightly higher and the gap is slightly smaller over the past 9 years. We do have some priority challenges. We desperately need and must have more schools pursuing excellence. We need more schools closing that achievement gap, reducing suspensions and increasing attendance, and we need to pay attention to those third graders, those 700 and some third graders that finished third grade without reading at grade level, and those 8th graders that either didn't pass the Keystone exam or didn't take algebra at all. They're in 9th grade this year, and we need them to be on track for advanced math going forward. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to invite our 2 distinguished guests, starting first with Mrs. Nina Esposito-Visgitis, President of the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers, to come up and make some remarks, and then followed by Dr. Linda Lane. Thank you, Nina, for being here.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here. And I do want to thank A+ Schools, first of all, for inviting me to be here and for highlighting the positives that are going on in our school every day. And I hope you realize that. I'm so proud to be a part of the Pittsburgh Public Schools and what's going on there every day. And I'm also glad that they also point out areas that we do need to grow and strengthen in. And let me tell you that our teachers are more than willing and anxious to improve in those areas. Our members are proud to serve the students and the parents of the Pittsburgh Public Schools. And like A+, they're always looking at ways to improve, and we continue to work on that. We are proud of the gains we have made, and believe them, we celebrate them every day. We are thrilled about the increases in the graduation rate that Carrie spoke about. We're thrilled about the decreases in the achievement opportunity gap in a number of our schools, and the increases of number of students in AP courses. And of course, you know, I'm thrilled about the continuing work our teachers do and our paraprofessionals and our technical clericals, because it's all a team effort to work together to make our schools stronger and better. I'm really proud that we've been leaders in Act 82, the new teacher evaluation program. It's been bumpy sometime, but we continue to work through it, and we truly are a leader in the state, and our teachers are working hard to get better. I'm very proud, too, of how our teachers are fighting for improved PD. They're demanding improvements in professional development that target the areas that we need to work on. Also, they're demanding specialized supports for their students that we're seeing, and I'm really excited about that. We realize there is still much work that we have to do, particularly as the A+ study reports, and we're also aware, as the A+ study points out, that poverty continues to increase in our district and our society. So we look forward to working with the district and separately as a PFT on projects that embrace the entire child, which is a focus now of the district's work, and family, to make sure that each and every student has the opportunity to come to school ready and anxious to learn. We're working hard with the district to improve teaching and learning environments so that every one of our children have a place where it's great to learn and it's great to teach also. We want it to be a two-pronged thing because we know that works together. We continue to work with community partners to make sure that families have access to opportunities, and the PFT is reaching out like never before to many, many community partners in higher education. We're forming partnerships with Point Park, the University of Pittsburgh, Grand Canyon University, and we're excited about that. We continue to work with our teachers to make sure that they have the training, input, and the supplies that they need every day. And we continue to work on that, and as I said, we continue to work on the teaching and learning environment that we all know is vital to make every one of our schools a great place, as they should be. Please make no mistake, the PFT knows that we're in a very important symbiotic relationship with the district. We want our schools to continue to flourish and improve always. Our teachers will have nowhere to teach unless we have a viable and a wonderful school district, and we're going to fight for our school district and continue to work to make our school district the finest of the urban school districts in the United States. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Dr. Lane, I want to get your slides up for you here. Sorry. There you are.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Yeah, she put slide view up there so you can see them really quickly, and we don't have to stay for the rest. You've seen the slides already. I brought this with me because first I'm a teacher, I guess, still, so I have my props. One of our schools did it, and I love this t-shirt. I told Celine my favorite t-shirt is the One Promise 90 Neighborhoods. This is my second favorite t-shirt. And as we think about what we want for our children, this is what we want. This is what we want, and we see every child as college material. I've said it before, and I think many of you have heard me, that people will come up to me, well, Linda, you know not all children are college material. And I say to them, I've heard people say that, but you know, it's funny. They never say it about their child or their grandchild. None of us say that about our own kids. And actually, I give the shout out to Whittier. They're the ones that did this for their children. So anyway, we see our kids as college material. Does that mean that everybody's going to Carnegie Mellon or Penn State? Absolutely not. It may mean that they're going to get a workforce certification. But we know they all have to have some kind of post-secondary training in order to be successful. So thank you for appreciating my t-shirt. First of all, I want to thank A+ for the work that they do each year on this report. It's comprehensive. It certainly gives us an opportunity to put a lot of data points together as we think about our work in the Pittsburgh Public Schools. So I do have just a few comments I want to make in regard to the report. Let me make sure I'm clicking this thing the right direction. No, I'm not.
No, I think you have to
There we go. Okay. Sometimes it's one side and sometimes it's the other. All right. So the college material t-shirt is because of the vision. Backward. Backward. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry, people. see here. Let me try this way. Okay, Carrie, give me a hint.
Yeah. Here, maybe I could just
Okay.
click it.
Yeah.
Let's just go previous.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning.
How about okay.
I swore I'd never use unfamiliar computer equipment again, but I guess
There
I've
you
done
go.
it. Okay, and so it's
This is
right?
a little bit of a quirky setup.
Okay, so.
it's this one.
Okay, that's
But
what
it
I
just
thought
needs to
was
be sitting down because it's just
Oh,
a
it needs to be
mouse.
sitting down. Okay. All right. Anyway, back to the college material T-shirt. We want to begin with the end in mind, and that end, of course, is this vision we have for our students. And why? One of the blessings we have here in Pittsburgh is the promise, because for our kids, they do have the opportunity to do this, even if their family does not have the means to send them on to some kind of post-secondary opportunity. And we want all of our kids to be able to take advantage of that special effort that this community has made on behalf of their children. This is our board, and several of them are here this morning. I think Ms. Cindy Falls is here, Carolyn Klug is here, Dr. Regina Holly's here. Is there any other, and I didn't see any of our other board members. If I did, please wave. Even though the board may not always agree with each other on everything, and may not even agree with me on some things, amazingly, but I think we do agree on this. I think we agree that this is our vision for kids, and we want them to be able to be successful in some post-secondary opportunity. When we have big goals, we often want to check in on how do we reach those goals. And so if you had a goal about, I want to get healthier, you might end up going to your doctor, right? And you might check out some things. But when you go to your doctor, they're not going to just put you on the scale until you're well or sick. They're not going to just take your temperature and tell you you're well or sick. They're probably going to do a series of things. They'll take your temperature. They'll listen to your heart. They'll check your blood pressure. They do that thing with your knee. I'm never sure what that's supposed to be about. But anyway, so they check on a variety of things, and we're the same way. As we want to become a stronger and healthier school district, we too have to check on a variety of measures, and that's one of the things I appreciate so much about the A+ report. It pulls together a lot of different things, not just test scores. And so this how are we doing story means it gives us a chance to take a step back and think about progress and lack of progress, frankly. So let me talk about some of the takeaways I had. There were 4 areas I wanted to just talk briefly about. One is the distribution of teachers. And for those of you that are familiar with our Excellence for All grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that is one of the strategic priorities of that, to make sure we have the very best teachers we can in front of our kids that need them the most. We know that we've made some progress in that area. We believe we have. One of the things that's not in the report, if we ask our principals about the teachers we hired last summer, generally positive reaction, better than we've seen in the past. So our HR department, a shout out to them for the hard work they're doing to find new teachers who are the very best we can hire. But the real work, of course, there is developing our current workforce. And I was glad to hear Nina say the teachers want more PD, because we'd love for them to have more PD. Professional development for our teachers is how teachers grow. And that doesn't mean just sitting in a class. That may mean coaching. It may mean sitting and visiting with another more experienced teacher. It may be going and sitting in that teacher's class and watching what they do, so seeing some role modeling. But that's going to be certainly one of our important efforts. Next one was resources, and I think you saw the relationship between the relative costs of small schools. Now, the board clearly made decision back in December about not closing any schools, which happened, I think, December 18th of last year. However, we do know that the smaller schools there is an increased cost per student per school, and I think we have to always keep that in mind. And the numbers you were seeing, as I think Carrie mentioned, do not include the cost of the principal, cost of the building, cost of transportation, some centrally allocated costs. We decided that what we want to do is get even more transparency around resource allocation, because there's always questions in the fall. Did school A get as many teachers as school B did, and those kind of things. So part of our goal is to set an even more transparent school funding formula that includes some of those centralized costs as well,
so we can see the relative costs of programs across the district. And ultimately, we'd like to include, these numbers were actually based on average teacher salary rather than actual. And of course, we know that in a teacher salary schedule, the more experience a teacher has, the more highly they're compensated. And so that is a factor as well in the allocation of money per school, and we want to be able to see that. So our goal is to try to get all the way deeper into that resource allocation issue so that we can even be have a greater degree of transparency. Climate, I love that. Challenge and care. Challenge and care. Kids said that the remarks the kids gave around their tripod student survey that correlated most closely with achievement at the school was, I'm being challenged in my class and my teacher cares about me. And I have a friend who I've often quoted who called it being on their case and on their side. And so on their case and on their side. Why is this important to us? It's important for teachers to know that. And so we all need to understand that we're not doing children a favor when we don't challenge them. We're not doing them a favor when we make it easy. And some of you at Teachers Matter heard me talk about my high school English teacher, who was the first teacher I ever heard of, I told them, who would give you a double F for too many technical errors in your paper, and at the time seemed extremely painful and punitive, but in the long run served us all very well. So that was challenge, I guess. Third grade milestone. This is an area that we knew was important for the very reasons you heard. Kids that do not read on grade level by third grade, our ability to catch them up is limited. Now, it's not that we don't try, and it's not that we don't do response to intervention and other kind of support for them, but it's not always successful. So that time from pre-K to third grade is crucial. Knowing this, we as we talked about this last spring, talked to some of our teachers about it, talked to principals about it. What can we do about this? The direction they gave us was more professional development, Nina, for the teachers. And 250 of our teachers this summer participated in what we call letters training. And but basically what letters is to help primary grade teachers understand better how to teach reading. What kind of things are important, how to diagnose reading difficulties. And so we're really pleased with the number of teachers that jumped into that and spent a lot of their summer developing their skills. So, and I also need to give a shout out to a couple of our principals who are the ones that recommended we do that. The algebra milestone, also very important. Algebra is the gateway course. And if you think it's only for people going to college, it isn't. There are many, many technical fields, very highly compensated technical fields that our kids will have jobs doing that require higher math, algebra and beyond. So getting kids ready for algebra, we have a grant to help us with that as well. Again, teachers spending the summer in training to get better prepared to help kids be successful in algebra, especially around racial disparities in algebra achievement. Last year, in August of 13, we reported on the PSSA and Keystone results, and it was disappointing. They were down in 13. And so we kind of lived through that, disappointment. And then in November, A+ reported on the Keystone and PSSA results. It was like nobody had heard it before, and we had to live through it all again. So I'm very grateful that this time they actually went up a little bit. So I'm looking forward to living through it twice this time, even though I dreaded it last time. And we did get a little bit of an increase, contrary to the state. So as I said, it's not, we know that it's, I know many people say, well, it wasn't that much, and I know that. I'm not trying to make it the case that this was like phenomenal growth in PSSA. It was not. But nevertheless, it took a lot of hard work to get there. Every 10th of a point, some teachers working like a dog to get there. And so I think we have to not take away from our staff by saying it wasn't enough. I think we say, yeah, we're gonna work harder to make it more the next time, but we also have to recognize the work that people did to get the results that we get. As I said again, contrary to the state. As we talk about racial disparities, I want to spend just a minute on that. As I've talked to our staff, our principals especially about this. I would like us to begin looking at a comparison, not of black and white kids so much to each other, but more the percent of kids that are proficient and advanced overall. So, and let me see if I can make the case for this. If there was a gap of 10 points, let's say, racial gap of 10 points, and one group is at 75 and one group is at 85, to me, that's a little bit different than having one group at 45 and one group at 55. And so even though you may have a gap of the same size, neither group is doing very well. So as we think about this achievement, especially of our African American students, who many of whom have historically been underperforming on tests, I want us to think about how do we get to this goal of higher achievement, as well as just worrying about the gap itself. Because again, as I said, if there's a gap but your African American students are at 85% proficient, that I can live with that kind of a gap a little bit more than certainly more than I can live with a gap when no one is doing well. However, of course, the ultimate goal is to close it altogether. So it is invisible to us, and we talk about colorblind and not that's the colorblindness I would like to have. That when you look at our data is colorblind, which it is not at this point, and that has to change. We know for sure. Let me speak a bit about attendance. Last year we kicked off our Be There campaign, which was, we want you to be at school. This was the first time we looked at kids' absences beyond just their excused absences. We looked at every day out of seat. We don't care if your parents took a trip to California or you were visiting a college, or, there are legitimate reasons to be gone. But if you're gone, you're gone. If you're gone, you're gone. And we know that for our teachers, our principals, and other staff, it doesn't matter how good they are if kids are home. Or even worse, with some of our teenagers out in the neighborhood during the day. They're not actually home because mom and dad are at work, and they've created their own curriculum for the day, which isn't often something we want them doing. So as we talk about this achievement issue and the link it has to the attendance issue, we're going to have to become more diligent about that. Well, what can we do about it? We know for some of our kids it might be transportation issues. But we're going to have to find out, why aren't you here? Why aren't you here? And so thinking about how we can do a better job of reaching out to children, especially the kids that are chronic, in that top of the triangle, chronic absenteeism, how are we going to reach out to them, find out and see if we can mitigate against. Some of our elementary schools are doing a great job of this just by recognizing kids for being at school. And I think we were talking about this last week. I think sometimes high school people think that's kind of hokey. I don't think it is. Everybody likes to be recognized. And as at the high school is where we have the biggest chronic absenteeism problem. And so getting our high schoolers to school on a regular basis is very, very important. We've talked about the transportation issue with this. Would it be easier if they were on Port Authority buses? Because then if you miss the bus, you can catch the next one. If you miss the yellow bus, you're done for the day. And thinking about, would that be of help to some of our kids? So we've had some discussions with our board about that and looking at other ways that we might be able to help get our children to school. But I think the other responsibility we have is to make it interesting as much as possible. And we're doing a lot of conversation right now about project-based learning and more engaging activities for kids. And one of my personal favorites, of course, is having kids do real work. We've got an opportunity to be out to some districts where some of their high schoolers are actually contracted by, not in terms of money, but engaged with companies to solve real problems. And high school kids like to solve real problems. They don't like just getting a worksheet we made up that we already know all the answers to. They want to do something that's new, that's different, that's actually moving the world ahead. And because I think, back in the agrarian period of our society, these kids were working. They were milking cows and bringing in crops and taking care of their families in a way that gave them personal meaning in their lives. I think people like to help, and I think if we can give them those kind of opportunities, that can help engage as well. Families and community. One of the things A+ does a lot of work with is engaging in our community, which is wonderful. we know that we appreciate opportunities we have to engage with you because you engage with them, but we also know we have to engage with you as well. And so we have been talking about how do we partner in a new way. And I've got to give a shout out to our Equity Advisory Panel. I know Ms. Henderson is here. This is a picture from our Parent Institute. And Vi, I think you're here too, aren't you? Yeah, Vi Burgess is here. In fact, she and Ms. Henderson are sitting right there together. They did a ton of work together for this. Our panel worked on it. Our equity office worked on it. It was a great event. And how many parents did we have on that Saturday? 200 parents. That shows you the commitment of parents in the Pittsburgh Public Schools. 200 parents on a Saturday, which, as I remember, was the last Saturday before school started, which most people are like, okay, let's go to the beach. But no, they were there with us. And so the fact of the matter is that's one of our efforts to engage in a new way, and there will be others as well. And you'll be hearing more about that soon because we are going to be putting more resources in this area of family and community engagement because we think it's so important. We talked about collective impact in whole child, whole community, and we know that we can work together better, and we also, I firmly believe, and I think most people agree with me on this one, that if we can get to that place that we can get a greater impact for our children. There are hundreds of people and frankly hundreds of organizations in Pittsburgh that are working with us, and they may be working in one school, they may be working across the district. But I was listing community partners for our board just last week, and I found 138 partnerships. However, how do we get collective impact? How do we agree on what are our goals? How do we agree on how we're going to hold each other accountable? How are we going to measure our milestones? So we're trying to all go some same direction in regard to our children. So that is something that you're going to be hearing more about soon as well. And then finally, in December, last December, thanks to the support of our local and national foundations, we published our plan to work on some of the areas that you heard about. We really appreciate, Carrie, for you picking up on our milestone and reporting on those milestones. And please know we're also keeping track and taking stock. We believe that we develop our people. Good people create good structures. And people and their structures create a culture of learning for not just each school and each classroom, but at the district level as well. Because when we talked about classroom culture, we started with the classroom, and I came to believe we needed to go the other way. We need to start with the district. What kind of a culture do we have at Belfield Avenue? And so thinking about that, because their culture exists inside of ours, and so how are we supporting them? So we're thinking what structures, how do we develop people in order to do a better job of doing that. So we plan to be reporting on how we're coming in some of the areas we talked about last year in whole child, whole community early in 2015. Date has not been set. She's cringing because I decided this on Saturday. I said, time for us to report on this. So we knew we couldn't be ready in December, but we thought we could be ready in the spring. So we will be reporting. You all will be invited, and so stay tuned on that. So I thank you very much this morning for your time and for putting up with my fumbling with the mouse. And as always, it is a privilege to serve as superintendent in Pittsburgh Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lane and Nina. Just bear with. Okay, so from us, there's more to come. We were able to share with you more data than we've ever had about what's happening in our schools. And I think this in and of itself is noteworthy, right? 10 years ago when we started publishing the report, the only thing that was standard was test data, right? Pittsburgh Public Schools has come a long way, as has the country, in terms of understanding what we need to know, what the lead indicators are. We need to know to be able to make sure we're getting better outcomes for kids. So we have a lot more information now. And we think it creates a lot more opportunities for us to look at relationships, what matters and what doesn't. So you'll be hearing more from us this year. in the next few months, 3 to 5 briefs we're hoping to publish. We're planning to publish that look at some of the relationships between, say, resources and outcomes, and suspensions and outcomes, et cetera, those sorts of things. Here's what you can do right now. Get informed, read the report, make your list of questions, go to your school and start asking. Invite us to your school or community meeting, and we'll tailor a presentation about that school or that community to help you understand. We say visit a school. There's nothing in this report that substitutes for visiting a school, right? This is one kind of way to sort of get a lay of the land, but the best thing you can do if you want to understand our schools is to visit them. Meet with your school's principals and teachers, learn more about what's behind the numbers, take a tour, please, and volunteer. Join us and volunteer for one of our programs, attend an event, subscribe to our email newsletter, and join a parent or student team at one of our schools. Starting today, here's what is going to happen next with this report. The report is available online, and it's in the mail going to Pittsburgh Public Schools households. Many have gotten it already. You can also invite us to present at your school or community group starting today. Tomorrow, the executive summary for the report will be in the Post-Gazette, home deliveries and single copy sales in the city. And on Wednesday, the executive summary will be in the new Pittsburgh Courier. On Friday, an interactive version of the report will be available up on our website. We were hoping that would be there today, but on Friday it will be there. And then coming soon, as I mentioned earlier, a series of reports exploring the data further. So I'm going to end there and just invite members of the media that may have any questions to just come up and see me, Nina and Dr. Lane, and thank you for coming.